K9 dog wouldn't stop barking at a woman carrying a baby. The truth behind it stunned the entire terminal. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't running. Just a well-dressed woman cradling a sleeping baby through a crowded airport. So why did the service dog go wild? Why did he block her path, growl, and refuse to back down, even when everyone told him to stop? What did he see that no one else did? What they uncovered next at the Bozeman airport left every traveler frozen in disbelief. Would you have trusted the dog or the mother? Outside the glass panels of Gallatin Field Airport in Bozeman, Montana, a curtain of late winter snow was drifting gently across the tarmac. The sky was the color of faded denim, and the chill that hung in the air gave a brittle edge to every breath. Inside the terminal, however, the atmosphere was anything but calm. Weather delays had pushed travelers into crowded lines, voices strained with frustration, and the scent of burned coffee mingled with the acrid tang of de-icer clinging to boots. The clock above Gate 4 blinked 2:13 p.m. Officer Olivia Barnes adjusted the brim of her navy blue patrol cap and gently tugged on the leash of her K9 partner, Ranger. Ranger, a 5-year-old male German Shepherd, was the kind of dog that turned heads. His coat shimmered with shades of black and russet, meticulously groomed. His gait was disciplined but fluid, muscles tense beneath the fur. But what truly distinguished Ranger wasn't his appearance. It was his story. He had once been found as a pup in the wreckage of a trailer fire outside Missoula, guarding the body of an elderly woman who had perished in the flames. He'd refused to leave her side for 2 full days until fire crews could get him out. That trauma had embedded a kind of sixth sense in him, particularly toward children and the vulnerable. It was what led to his selection for a rare training program in behavioral threat detection. Unlike bomb or drug dogs, Ranger specialized in people. Beside him walked Officer Olivia Barnes, a woman in her late 30s with tightly pinned auburn hair and a lean, athletic build. Her eyes, a sharp shade of green, scanned the terminal with the habit of someone who never let herself be fully off duty. Olivia had served 12 years in law enforcement, most of it in urban patrol units. But after a deeply personal incident, her niece going missing and being found days later, thankfully alive, Olivia had requested to join the K9 unit. Her bond with Ranger had grown from shared trauma into a partnership that often felt wordless. They were nearing the baggage claim area when Ranger suddenly slowed. His ears pricked forward, his posture no longer relaxed but rigid, coiled with restrained energy. Olivia paused, following his gaze. 20 feet ahead, a woman in a tailored gray coat was gliding past a crowded seating area. She appeared to be in her early 30s, tall, with sleek black hair tied back into a low bun. Her makeup was immaculate, and her scarf bore the distinct pattern of an expensive designer brand. She held a baby in her arms, maybe 1 year old, perhaps younger. The child was bundled in a soft blue blanket, head resting motionless on her shoulder. Ranger gave a low, questioning whine. "What is it, buddy?" Olivia murmured, watching him closely. The dog's head tilted, then his stance shifted, ears pinned, tail straight, eyes locked on the woman and her infant. The whine turned into a low growl. Olivia stiffened. Ranger rarely growled. He was trained to signal subtly. He only escalated if something was wrong, deeply wrong. She stepped forward, voice calm but authoritative. "Ma'am, may I speak with you for a moment?" The woman turned, startled. Up close, her features were refined, her skin pale but unblemished. Her eyes, ice blue, were wide, but she kept her expression neutral. "Yes," she said politely, cradling the baby closer to her chest. I'm Officer Barnes, Bozeman, K9 unit. My partner here is indicating some concern. Would you mind telling me your destination and showing your boarding pass?" The woman hesitated just briefly. "Of course. I'm flying to Denver, American Airlines. My name's Vanessa Reed." Ranger barked, loud and clear, once, then again. People turned, phones came out. Olivia's jaw clenched. "Ranger, quiet," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Deep down, she trusted him. The baby hadn't stirred once, not at the barking, not at the shift in movement. Olivia's heart dropped slightly. "You said Denver," she asked. "Yes," Vanessa answered smoothly. Olivia nodded slowly. "Strange. I was just told American canceled all outgoing flights to Denver 2 hours ago due to the snowstorm." Vanessa blinked. "Oh, I meant United. I'm a little frazzled. It's been a long morning." Ranger let out another growl, this time lower, vibrating deep in his chest. The baby was still motionless, too motionless. Just as Olivia was about to speak, her radio crackled. She lifted it to her ear. The dispatcher's voice was calm but urgent. "Officer Barnes, we have a bolo from Belgrade PD. Missing child, male, 2 years old. Last seen with a woman matching the description you requested earlier. Possible abduction. Proceed with caution." Olivia's heart kicked against her ribs. She looked again at the child. Blue blanket, soft brown curls. She glanced up at the woman, now shifting on her feet. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me for a few additional questions." Vanessa's voice went cold. "I don't see the need. I've done nothing wrong. My baby is sleeping. We're catching a flight." Ranger stepped forward. His entire body was taut, eyes focused not on Vanessa, but on the child. The woman backed up a step. "You can't just accuse me," she snapped, her tone rising. "Please," Olivia said, her voice still even. "For the baby's safety, I'm asking for cooperation." Just then, a woman entered the terminal from the south entrance. She was in her late 60s, gray curls tucked beneath a wool hat, cheeks flushed from the cold. Her name was Eleanor Moore. She'd driven from Belgrade the moment she saw the photo in the anonymous message. She clutched a folder with laminated photos and medical records. When Eleanor saw the baby, she dropped the folder. "Toby," she whispered. "Oh my God, Toby." Vanessa turned sharply, eyes wide. Olivia instinctively stepped between them. Ranger barked once more, louder than ever, and stood protectively in front of the child. It was all happening at once. Olivia raised her voice over the confusion. "Everyone step back. This is a law enforcement situation." Vanessa froze, clinging to the baby. Ranger didn't move. His body blocked her path entirely. And in that moment, Olivia knew, whatever this woman had done, wherever she was trying to go, Ranger had stopped it just in time. The hum of the airport faded into a strange silence as Olivia guided the woman who had identified herself as Vanessa Reed toward a quieter seating area near the administrative gate entrance. The tension around them, though, muted by the soft murmur of travel announcements and distant footfalls, remained thick-drawn tight by the steel thread of uncertainty. Ranger walked slightly ahead, body rigid, his tail held low and stiff. His every movement was alert, calculated as if measuring the invisible weight of the air between the woman and the child in her arms. Vanessa sat slowly adjusting the baby, who remained limp and unmoving beneath a fluffy blue blanket. Olivia noted again the troubling stillness. No shift of tiny legs, no stir of breath visible at the blanket's edge. Most children would fidget even if asleep, but this one might as well have been carved in wax. Olivia crouched beside the stroller-turned seat, her voice calm but firm. "Ma'am, could I see some identification, please? Yours and the child's." Vanessa hesitated. "I told you we're flying to Denver. My ID is in my bag. The baby's papers are packed in our checked luggage. You can understand, I hope Olivia said, maintaining even eye contact given the alert we received. I need to confirm your identity and the child's." Vanessa opened her designer handbag with a sigh that was equal parts irritation and feigned calm. Her fingers, despite their elegance, manicured with pale pink polish, trembled ever so slightly. She produced a leather wallet and pulled out a driver's license. Olivia took it, examining the details. Vanessa Reed, Montana issue, 14 months old, too clean. The edges weren't frayed, the surface unworn. Either this woman took immaculate care of her cards, or it wasn't used often. You said you were flying American Airlines, Olivia added casually. Yes. Well, United, actually. I got confused. It's been a long day. You also mentioned your husband is meeting you. What's his name? Vanessa blinked. David. David Reed. And where is he waiting? In Chicago. O'Hare. But Olivia had already caught the stumble the half-second too long it took to answer. Before she could press further, Ranger let out a low huff and repositioned himself. His body turned just slightly so that his eyes could stay locked on the baby. Just then, the overhead speakers chimed. Olivia's radio crackled again. Unit 12, be advised, woman named Eleanor Moore is approaching Checkpoint 5. Claims visual confirmation on child matching Bolo from Belgrade. Elderly white female, gray coat, dark boots. Olivia rose from her crouch and nodded to another officer stationed at a distance. Bring her here. The woman who entered moments later had a look of hollow exhaustion carved deep into the lines of her face. Eleanor Moore was in her late 60s, short and slightly stooped from years of working in Montana's harsh winters. Her eyes, though, were sharp, burning with a pain only someone who has searched too long can carry. Her gray hair curled naturally around her face and her cheeks were wind-chapped and raw. She clutched a folder close to her chest. The moment she laid eyes on the child, her knees buckled slightly. "That's him," she whispered, her voice cracking. "That's my grandson. That's Toby." Vanessa's face paled. "I don't know who this woman is. This is my baby." Eleanor stepped forward, tears pooling fast. "He has a scar behind his left ear, from the dog bite when he fell into the garden at 14 months. Olivia's gaze hardened. "Ma'am," she said, addressing Vanessa, "can I check for that identifying mark?" "No." Vanessa clutched the child tighter. "You're scaring him. He's sensitive. We just got him to sleep." Ranger moved slowly but with unmistakable intent and stood directly between Vanessa and the rest of the room. His posture was no longer cautious, it was protective. "Not of Vanessa, but of the child," Ma'am Olivia said again, firmer this time. "Please let me see the child." Vanessa's eyes darted toward the exit. "Do not run," Olivia warned. "I will stop you. My dog will stop you." For one tense second, everything hung in a frozen moment. Then Ranger gave a soft, almost mournful whine, the kind he'd been trained to signal when a child was in distress. Olivia took a step forward, slowly reached for the blanket and gently pulled it back. The baby's face was beautiful. Brown curls, round cheeks, but pale, unnaturally so. Olivia pressed 2 fingers gently against the child's wrist. Faint pulse. Breathing shallow. Sedated. She lifted her eyes to Vanessa. "What did you give him?" Vanessa swallowed. "Nothing harmful. Just something to help him sleep." "What did you give him?" Olivia repeated, voice sharp now. "Children's Benadryl," she admitted, panicked. "I didn't want him to cry. It was a long trip. I didn't want to scare him." Eleanor gasped. "Toby! My God!" Olivia signaled a paramedic nearby. "Medical check. Now!" As EMTs approached, Vanessa tried to stand, but Ranger took a step forward, barring her movement with nothing more than his presence. His eyes remained fixed on her face. Tail-stiff ears pointed forward in exact symmetry. His body, a barrier. A silent guardian. The paramedic, a calm and focused man in his 40s named Josh Grady, knelt beside the baby. Josh was tall and lean, with silver-threaded hair and a weather-worn look, the kind that came from years working under pressure. His voice was low and comforting as he checked the baby's vitals. Low respiratory rate, pupils slow to respond. "We need to get him to the ER for a tox screen and evaluation." Is he okay?" Eleanor whispered, hand clutched to her chest. "We got to him in time." Josh nodded, but it was close. As the EMTs prepared the stretcher, Olivia turned to the officer on backup. "Place Vanessa Rachel, whoever she is, in custody. We'll sort the identity at the station." Vanessa didn't resist. The fight had drained out of her. She looked not like a mother, but a woman unraveling. Olivia crouched next to Ranger and whispered into his ear. "You saw it before any of us, didn't you?" The dog leaned gently into her shoulder. The wind outside Gallatin Field howled louder now, as if the storm itself was trying to press its way into the airport's warm, humming halls. Snow flurried against the tall glass panes of the waiting area, obscuring the world outside in a veil of white. Inside the terminal, tension no longer floated. It thickened, surrounded Officer Olivia Barnes, like a fog she had walked into too many times in her career. Ranger's low whine still echoed in her ears. The child, Toby, was in the care of paramedics, now carefully monitored in the ambulance just beyond the gate entrance. Ranger stood by the sliding doors, posture forward, ears alert as if his work wasn't finished. Olivia trusted that look. It wasn't one of closure. It was a signal. There was more beneath the surface, something unsaid, that Ranger's instincts had already touched. Inside the security office, Rachel Dwyer, formerly Vanessa Reed, sat slumped in a plastic chair. Her once pristine coat was unbuttoned, revealing a silk blouse wrinkled from stress. Her hair, which had been neatly pinned back earlier, now hung in damp strands around her face. Her mascara had smudged, trailing along her cheekbones like shadows of who she pretended to be. She refused to speak, arms crossed tightly, eyes darting to the window. Olivia stood just outside, hands on her hips, speaking with Deputy Thomas Harlan, a tall, broad-shouldered man in his early 40s, with a creased brow and deep-set brown eyes. Thomas was local to Gallatin County, a lifelong Montanan whose father had also served on the force. He was calm, quiet, but perceptive, known to most as the officer who didn't say much unless it mattered. He wore a wool-lined sheriff's coat and spoke in a slow, gravelly voice. "I just got off with Belgrade PD," he said, glancing at the glass behind which Rachel sat. "Toby Moore was reported missing 3 days ago. Mother deceased. Custody transferred to grandmother. This woman never mentioned. She's not a legal guardian, not a family friend. Nothing." Olivia nodded. She drugged the boy to keep him quiet. Something more than just desperation. Ranger's behavior wasn't just about concern, it was protective. He recognized something. Deeper. Thomas scratched his jaw. "You ever think dogs see things in people we don't?" "All the time," Olivia replied. Before Thomas could respond, another officer entered the hallway. He was younger, late 20s, thin with sharp cheekbones and a nervous energy. His name tag read Eli Sutton, a baggage handler assigned to offloading and logistics. He wore a reflective vest and carried a clipboard. He looked between the officers, unsure if he was supposed to speak. I think I might have seen that kid before Eli said." Olivia turned. "When?" "A few days ago. Maybe Tuesday morning. I was doing a transfer for a private flight. Cargo manifest had weird paperwork, sparse info. But this woman," he pointed toward the interrogation room, "she was there. And I swear she had that same kid with her. Wrapped up real tight, just like now. Wouldn't let anyone get close." Thomas stepped forward. What kind of flight was it, private charter? No listed passengers, just one handler and her. Departed came back the next day. The name on the luggage manifest was a company, Everpine Psychological Consultants. Olivia stiffened. Everpine Eli nodded. "Yeah, that's why I remember. That group runs out of a place east of town, big white building in the forest. Heard some rumors it's a therapy retreat. But folks say it's weird. People come and go at night. Locked gates. No signage." As Olivia processed the new information, Ranger gave another low, vibrating whine. His head turned toward the entrance again, as if expecting something or someone. She knelt beside him, running a hand along the line of his back. "You're still waiting for the truth, huh, boy?" He licked her hand once, then sat ears forward. A moment later, Olivia's phone buzzed. It was the hospital. Paramedic Josh Grady's voice came through the speaker. "We ran a tox panel on the boy. Benadryl, yes, but also traces of clonidine. That's not over the counter. It's a sedative, stronger, enough to knock out a toddler completely. He's stable now, but still drowsy. We're transferring him to Bozeman Deaconess for overnight observation." Olivia's grip on the phone tightened. "Thanks, Josh. I owe you." She stood and looked at Thomas. "We need to know who funded that charter flight, and who's behind that retreat center. Something tells me Rachel didn't plan all this herself. I'll call in a warrant request for surveillance and records," Thomas replied. "But if she was connected to Everpine, it's likely we're looking at a psychological manipulation case. Could be bigger." Inside the room, Rachel finally lifted her head. Her voice, thin and shaking, drifted through the intercom. "I didn't mean to hurt him," she said. "He was supposed to be mine. That's what they told me. He looked like Charlie. They said they could help me bring him back." Olivia exchanged a glance with Thomas. "Charlie?" he asked. "My son Rachel whispered. He died. But they said he'd come back in a different body, that all I had to do was go get him." "Who's they?" Olivia pressed, stepping into the room, now keeping her tone even. Rachel's hands trembled. "The doctor. The one at Everpine. He said grief can be rewritten, that souls can transfer. He showed me pictures. Said Toby was born the day Charlie died. Same eyes. Same birthmark." Ranger growled softly at the doorway. Olivia didn't stop him. "Rachel," she said, "do you remember the doctor's name?" She nodded slowly, tears falling now. "Dr. Merrick. Hal Merrick." The wind had eased by morning, but the sky above Bozeman remained a cold, unyielding gray. Outside the Everpine Psychological Consultants, building an austere two-story structure nestled at the edge of a pine-lined road, everything felt too quiet, too still. The building looked almost like a modern lodge, its exterior crafted from dark cedar planks and stone. Yet as Olivia Barnes approached with Ranger at her side, she felt the same creeping unease she had felt in the airport when Ranger had first barked at Rachel. The same weight in her gut, the same prickle at the back of her neck. Ranger trotted beside her, his gaze alert but not aggressive. The building's glass door hissed open, revealing a warmly lit lobby. A soft instrumental melody drifted from overhead speakers meant to calm, but to Olivia it felt manufactured. Behind the reception desk sat a young woman in her late 20s. She was slender, almost fragile-looking, with pale skin, light hazel eyes, and shoulder-length ash-blonde hair tucked behind her ears. Her name tag read, Kendra Vale. Olivia approached the desk and introduced herself. "Detective Barnes, Gallatin County. I'm here to review records regarding a patient, Rachel Dwyer." Kendra blinked rapidly. "I'm sorry, but we can't release patient files without court-authorized warrant." Olivia held up the document. "Which I have. Also, this is Ranger. He's certified to accompany me." Kendra's eyes flicked toward the German shepherd and her shoulders stiffened. Ranger stood tall and silent eyes pinned to her as if already cataloging something beneath the surface. Olivia didn't miss the way Kendra shifted her body slightly away from him, her hand twitching near the computer mouse. I'll notify Dr. Merrick's assistant," Kendra stammered. "He's not in today, but his office should have the records." "Actually," Olivia said coolly, "I'd like you to take me there directly." Kendra hesitated but nodded. "Of course. This way." The hallways were clean, minimalist, lined with frosted glass doors labeled with therapeutic euphemisms. Healing Room Restoration Suite. Mind Rebalancing. Ranger's ears twitched at every creak and shift in the air. As they passed a room on the left, he suddenly paused, nose lifting slightly, eyes narrowing. Olivia marked the door. Creative regression therapy. Ranger gave a low huff and moved on. They arrived at Dr. Merrick's office. Kendra pulled out a set of keys and opened the door. Inside was a pristine space, dark wood furniture, tasteful art, and a wall of locked cabinets. "Do you know where Rachel Dwyer's file is?" Olivia asked. Kendra looked down. "It might be in the restricted file drawer. Dr. Merrick kept some patient records separate, said it was to protect their privacy." "Open it, please." Kendra retrieved a key from behind a bookshelf. Her fingers trembled as she inserted it into the lower cabinet. When it clicked open, Olivia crouched and began sifting through folders. Most were alphabetical. Many were redacted. But then there it was. A slim file labeled Dwyer R, tied with a silk ribbon. Inside were several standard psychological intake forms, trauma history prescription logs, and treatment summaries. But scattered between them were handwritten notes in cursive that did not match the clinic's printed letterhead. Olivia recognized the writing style from earlier photos of Hal Merrick's personal journaling, looped, slanted, and obsessively neat. Subject shows signs of post-traumatic regression. Recommend guided delusion as therapeutic framework. Target object deceased son Charlie. Substitute object matched child / visual proximity equals TM. 2YO. Olivia's stomach twisted. "You've seen these before?" she asked Kendra. Kendra flinched. He said it was just theoretical, that it helped the mothers cope, reframing their grief into something they could control." Olivia narrowed her eyes. "Did he ask you to facilitate any of these therapies?" Kendra's lips parted, then closed again. She looked down at her shoes, scuffed white sneakers that seemed out of place in the pristine office. "He told me not to ask questions, just to follow protocol. If I didn't cooperate, he said I'd be let go and blacklisted, that I'd never work again." Ranger stepped forward, posture steady but direct. His eyes didn't leave Kendra. She swallowed, then added, "He made me give her Rachel medication. He said it was just anti-anxiety stuff. But I don't know. I didn't see the labels." Olivia straightened. "We can protect you if you talk. But you need to come with me. And you need to testify." Kendra's voice cracked. "I want to help, but I'm scared." Ranger, in an uncharacteristic motion, walked forward and gently nudged his nose against her hand. She froze and then tentatively placed her palm against his fur. A slow breath escaped her lips. In that moment, Olivia knew she had gained a witness. Back at the precinct, Eleanor was waiting. She held a small envelope in her hand, weathered with a faded postmark from 4 years ago. Inside was a photo. A younger Toby, not more than 10 months old, laughing as he reached for something just off frame. In the corner of the photo stood Ranger just a year into his training at the time. His ears perked, his tongue out in a lolling pant. Olivia looked between the photo and Ranger, now older, sharper, but still carrying that same spirit. "He's been watching over Toby longer than any of us realized," Eleanor said softly. Olivia nodded. "And he's not done yet." The interrogation room at the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office was plain gray walls, a metal table, 2 chairs, and a digital recorder blinking quietly in the corner. Olivia Barnes stood at the observation glass, arms folded, her jaw set. Across the glass, sitting with unnerving composure, was Dr. Hal Merrick. Hal was in his early 60s, lean and clean-shaven, with salt and pepper hair combed back from a broad, intelligent forehead. He wore a charcoal wool coat over a cream sweater, projecting the calm, approachable professionalism that had earned him accolades in his early years as a trauma therapist. But now, under the fluorescent light, there was a hollowness behind his pale blue eyes, a glimmer of detachment that Olivia had come to recognize in those who thought they could rewrite truth to suit themselves. Across from him sat Detective Ray Stetson, a stocky, soft-spoken investigator known more for his strategic pauses than his threats. Ray, who had spent 25 years coaxing confessions from suspects too confident to realize they were caught, leaned back in his chair, letting the silence stretch just a few seconds longer than comfortable. Dr. Merrick finally spoke. "I'm assuming this is about Rachel Dwyer." Ray nodded slowly. "And the child, Toby Moore." Merrick laced his fingers together. "You have no evidence tying me to any criminal act. Rachel was a patient, a grieving mother. She was fragile, yes, but she was also willing. Everything was voluntary." Ray didn't respond. Instead, Olivia entered the room, Ranger at her side. The moment Merrick saw the dog, he stiffened, not in fear, but in something closer to calculation. Olivia took the seat across from him, leaving Ranger at a heel beside her. "We have your notes," she said. "Handwritten entries detailing how you encouraged Rachel to accept a belief system where her deceased son had returned in another child's body." "Reframing grief is a common therapeutic approach," Merrick replied calmly. "You'll find similar methods in most integrative trauma practices." Olivia leaned in. "Not when it ends with sedated toddlers and false identities." At that, Ranger stood and approached Merrick. His posture changed instantly, no longer neutral. His ears went forward, his stance widened slightly, and his head lowered just enough to signal dominance. He didn't bark, not yet, but a low rumble vibrated in his chest. Merrick tilted his head. "Your dog doesn't seem very well trained." "He reacts only when there's danger," Olivia said, her voice quiet. "And he's never wrong." Ranger growled a sharp, pointed sound that echoed louder in the close room. Olivia gave a subtle hand signal, and the dog returned to her side, still watching Merrick with laser precision. Outside, Ray tapped the table twice and exited with a nod to Olivia. They had enough for now. Later that afternoon, Olivia sat in the records division of the sheriff's office, surrounded by yellowing case files and coffee-stained folders. She had instructed the team to cross-reference Merrick's past employment with cases involving custody loss or psychiatric reevaluation. That's when she found Melissa Hartley, a woman in her mid-30s from Fort Collins, Colorado, former teacher. 2 years ago, Melissa had experienced a mental health crisis after her infant son died unexpectedly. She was admitted to a private retreat in the Colorado Rockies run by Merrick's former associate program. After 6 weeks of treatment, Melissa claimed her child had not died, but had been reincarnated into another boy. She tried to retrieve the child from a daycare. When confronted, she insisted the toddler was her Charlie, the exact name Rachel had used. Olivia requested contact with Melissa, now living under conservatorship in a community care home. When the video call connected, she saw a thin woman with dark circles under her eyes, long unbrushed hair, and a tight line around her mouth. But her eyes lit up when Ranger came into frame. "He was there," Melissa said. "The dog. I remember him from the pictures in the hallway at Everpine. They had this wall of canines used in trauma recovery." Olivia frowned. "You're sure?" Melissa nodded. "They said the dogs helped people remember who they were. But that wasn't what they were doing. They used photos to suggest ideas. Dr. Merrick told me I wasn't hallucinating, just remembering wrong. That Charlie's spirit had moved on and I had to follow him." "Did anyone give you medication during those sessions?" Melissa's voice dropped to a whisper. "Yes. He said it was to help me sleep, but sometimes I couldn't remember whole days." When the call ended, Olivia sat in silence. Ranger placed his head on her knee. She scratched behind his ears and whispered, "We're not dealing with just one broken system. We're dealing with a man who builds them." That evening, she drove to Eleanor's house in Belgrade. The porch light cast a warm glow across the snow-dusted steps. Inside, Eleanor poured tea in a worn ceramic mug and handed it to Olivia. "I found something," Eleanor said. She reached into an old shoebox and pulled out a drawing, crayoned lines on crumpled paper. It was a child's picture, a dog and a little boy. Their names written in shaky toddler scrawl, Ranger and Toby. The figures were surrounded by stars. He used to talk to the dog like a best friend. Eleanor said, her voice misting. Maybe that's why Ranger recognized him. Or maybe something deeper. Olivia studied the drawing heart, heavy but resolute. Whatever Merrick's done, he won't do it again. A thin curtain of snow had settled over Bozeman's northern edge, blanketing the pine trees and quiet fields that surrounded the gated property of Dr. Hal Merrick. The house itself stood on the edge of a wooded bluff, modern in its architecture, glass and steel blended with dark timber beams that made it appear more retreat center than private home. But for Olivia Barnes, it was a facade like everything else Merrick had built around himself. The search warrant had come through just after dawn. A 4-person tactical team stood by, joined by Olivia Detective Ray Stetson and Ranger, whose calm posture belied the tension in his body. Kendra Vale stood nearby, bundled in a borrowed sheriff's department coat, her blonde hair tied into a tight ponytail. She was pale, exhausted, but resolute. "I know the entrance isn't obvious," she said softly. "It's behind a bookshelf in his study. He told me it was a wine cellar, but no one was ever allowed in." "Let's go," Olivia said, motioning the team forward. Inside the house was pristine. The living room bore no sign of personal clutter, just curated art and strategically placed books. Ranger's nails clicked against the polished wood floor as he moved ahead, sniffing deliberately. He paused near the fireplace, then turned toward the hallway leading to Merrick's study. The office was colder than the rest of the house. Dark leather chairs, a polished desk, and a large bookshelf dominated the back wall. Kendra walked to it, hesitated, then reached under the lowest shelf and pressed a small panel. There was a soft click, and the entire unit slid forward an inch, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. The air grew colder as they descended. Olivia flicked on her flashlight, its beam sweeping across exposed stone and steel shelving. At the bottom, they entered a space no larger than a 2-car garage, but its contents were chilling. A full nursery had been recreated inside the basement. A white crib with a yellow mobile hung with stuffed stars. A rocking chair draped with a quilt. Shelves lined with baby bottles, soft toys, and children's books. But everything was too perfect. Unused. Arranged like a stage set waiting for an actor that never came. Ranger growled low and continuous. His body stiffened and turned toward the far wall. There beside a file cabinet was a heavy steel locker with a keypad. Olivia called for a code breaker, but Ranger had already moved toward a smaller wooden cabinet next to it. His nose hovered at its base. He gave a sharp bark, his alert signal for hidden contents. Stetson stepped forward and carefully pried the cabinet open. Inside was a false floor. Beneath it, wrapped in plastic and labeled meticulously, were dozens of thumb drives. "Bag everything," Olivia ordered, heart-hammering. They brought the drives to a secured room back at the station. Olivia sat in front of the screen, lips tight, watching hours of therapy sessions Merrick had conducted in his creative regression program. Each video followed the same pattern. A grieving mother, a softly lit room, Merrick's soothing voice guiding them through imagined memories of their lost child, then replacing those memories with carefully placed suggestions. Your child's spirit may return. Do not deny the possibility. You'll know them when you see them. You'll feel it. One session caught Olivia's eye. Kendra appeared in the background, preparing a small syringe. Merrick's voice spoke off camera. 2 drops only. It will help her relax, open her subconscious. Kendra hesitated on screen, then complied. Olivia looked across the room at Kendra, who sat wrapped in a blanket, staring at her own image on screen. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I thought it was anxiety medication. He said it was safe. He said I was helping." Olivia nodded, not with judgment, but understanding. "You were manipulated, just like the women he targeted." Kendra's voice trembled. "I'll testify. I'll tell everything." Later that day, Olivia sat across from Eleanor in the living room of her Belgrade home. Toby napped in the next room, curled up with one of Ranger's old training vests as a blanket. The fireplace crackled, casting a soft glow over a room full of quiet strength. "I don't know how to thank you," Eleanor said, voice low. "I feel like I've woken from a nightmare." Olivia looked down at the files in her hand, lists of Merrick's former patients, some marked receptive, others resistant. Some had addresses. Some had none. "We're just getting started," she said. Ranger, lying on the rug between them, gave a soft, affirming whine. The hallway outside the pediatric wing at Bozeman Deaconess Hospital smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender hand soap. It was quiet now, the chaos of earlier days replaced by soft footsteps and the occasional beep of a monitor. Sunlight streamed in through the tall windows, casting long golden rectangles across the linoleum floor. Olivia Barnes stood near the doorway to room 312, arms crossed gently, her Navy K-9 uniform still bearing creases from the long morning. Her auburn hair was pulled back in its usual bun, but wisps had escaped to frame her face. Next to her, Ranger lay in a relaxed sphinx posture, eyes half-lidded, but ears flicking at every small sound. His presence in the hospital had been cleared due to his record in service and his connection to the case. He hadn't left Toby's side since the child was admitted. Inside the room, a nurse with dark curls and a soft voice adjusted the IV line, her name tag reading Kelsey R. T. The baby Toby Moore lay curled on the hospital bed in a tiny set of navy pajamas patterned with white stars. His cheeks were fuller now, color returning to his skin. The sedatives had left his system, and while he hadn't spoken much, he had begun to follow movement again with his eyes. But there was still distance behind his gaze. Eleanor Moore stood outside the glass panel, unmoving. She was dressed in a simple blue blouse and gray slacks, her silver hair neatly pulled into a low twist. In her hands she clutched a well-worn toy, a small plush bear with one ear chewed off. Her knuckles were white around it. Olivia approached her slowly. "He's been stable for 2 days," Olivia said gently. "No signs of regression. They cleared the last scans this morning." Eleanor didn't respond at first. Her eyes stayed locked on the small figure inside. "Do you think he remembers me?" Olivia hesitated. "I think he remembers what safety feels like. And he's known that from you." Inside the room, Ranger stood. He didn't bark. He didn't move fast. He walked quietly across the floor and sat beside the hospital bed. Toby turned his head. His gaze landed on Ranger. For a moment, it was like watching someone trying to find a word they almost forgot how to say. Then his small fingers reached out. It was slow at first, hesitant, like testing a memory. But when his hand brushed the top of Ranger's fur, the boy blinked and the silence broke. He giggled. A short, sudden sound, high and clear. Then he said one word. "Rah." Eleanor's knees buckled. Olivia caught her by the elbow. "I'm here," Eleanor whispered. "I'm here, baby." Inside the room, Nurse Kelsey stepped back. Ranger nudged his nose gently into Toby's palm and then leaned into him. Toby wrapped his arms around Ranger's neck and clung with all the strength of a child who had been without. Dr. Harland, the attending pediatrician, arrived moments later. He was a soft-spoken man in his early 40s with a kind face and a slight stoop. His navy scrubs looked freshly pressed, and his voice carried the calmness of someone who had seen both miracles and loss. "He's responding well," Dr. Harland confirmed. "Physically, he's strong. What comes next is mostly emotional repair, and he's already started." Eleanor wiped her cheeks and stepped inside the room for the first time. The moment Toby turned toward her, his body stiffened briefly, uncertain. Then Ranger stepped between them, not to block, but to guide. He gave a soft huff, nudging Eleanor forward with his shoulder. "Toby," she whispered. "It's Grandma. You remember Grandma?" The child blinked. Olivia watched his brow furrow his lips.
twitch. Then the bear. She lifted it up. The one-eared toy. Toby's eyes widened. He reached. When Eleanor gave it to him, he held it to his chest and stared at her. After a moment, he murmured, "My bear." Then after another breath, "Grandma."
The dam broke. Eleanor fell to her knees beside the bed, arms wrapping around the child as gently as the moment would allow. Toby didn't flinch. He leaned into her. The bear was crushed between them. Ranger sat beside the bed watching quietly. In that moment, no one spoke. No one moved. The room had become something sacred. Outside, Olivia stepped into the hallway, letting the weight of the moment settle in her chest. Kendra Vale was waiting there. The young nurse from Everpine had been temporarily placed under protective supervision but had requested to see the reunion from a distance. Her face was pale, but her eyes no longer carried the fog of fear. "He's safe now," she said. Olivia nodded. "Because of you. I just wish I'd spoken up sooner," Kendra whispered. "You did when it mattered." Ranger stepped out of the room, tail flicking gently. He brushed past Olivia's leg and settled beside her. She looked down at him. "You knew before any of us." That evening, as twilight draped itself over Bozeman, a press release confirmed that Dr. Hal Merrick had been officially charged with multiple federal crimes, including unlawful sedation of minors, psychological manipulation, and conspiracy to abduct. Rachel Dwyer had been placed under psychiatric evaluation in a secure state hospital. But the city didn't speak of the legal victories that night. It spoke of Ranger. The dog who barked when others stayed silent. The one who stood still in the storm, unmoving, unshaken. The guardian who brought the boy home. Spring had begun to unfurl gently over the rolling hills of Belgrade, Montana. The last clumps of winter snow had melted into the earth, leaving behind damp patches in the grass and the smell of thawing pine. The sun, shy but steady, warmed the quiet air, and in a small-town park tucked behind a community library, laughter rang out like a bell. Toby Moore, now 3 and full of a quiet resilience that most children never had to earn, giggled as he chased a yellow tennis ball across the soft green field. His cheeks were rosy, his curls tousled by the breeze. With arms too small but determination too big, he scooped up the ball and turned to find Ranger watching him, attentively tail swishing. "Go get it!" Toby shouted and hurled the ball with all the strength his little arms could gather. Ranger, strong and swift, took off like a streak of lightning. The German shepherd's body moved with purpose, his black and tan coat glinting in the sun muscles rippling beneath the fur. He caught the ball mid-bounce, trotted back with an open mouth and happy pant, and dropped it at Toby's feet before gently nudging the boy with his nose. Toby squealed with delight and hugged Ranger's neck. Nearby, Eleanor Moore sat on a wooden bench beneath a budding birch tree. Her once tired face now glowed with warmth. She wore a pale lavender cardigan and faded jeans, her silver curls tucked beneath a wide-brimmed sun hat. She clutched a notebook in her lap, a list of names, volunteers, and phone numbers. Next to her stood Olivia Barnes, no longer in uniform. She wore a denim jacket over a soft green shirt and khaki pants. There was something lighter in her posture now, the rigid lines of her shoulders softened. She watched the boy and the dog with a half-smile on her lips. "Do you ever wonder?" Eleanor said what would have happened if Ranger hadn't barked that day. Olivia exhaled long and steady. "Every day. And then I remember he always knew." Ranger had been honored just last week at the Gallatin County ceremony. In a quiet, heartfelt event, attended by law enforcement, local families, and children, he was officially named K-9 of the Year. Olivia had given the speech, her voice steady, even as her eyes shimmered with emotion. He was never trained to detect danger in people, she had said. But somehow, after all he'd endured, he became a protector anyway. A silent guardian. For Toby, for others, and for all of us who might have looked the other way. Ranger didn't need the medal they'd given him.
He only needed what lay before him now, a boy who trusted him, a community that celebrated him, and a quiet field where he could run free. "What about you?" Eleanor asked, glancing sideways at Olivia. "What comes next?" Olivia hesitated, then sat beside her. "I've accepted a transfer. There's a task force forming a state-level unit focused on child endangerment and missing persons. It'll mean some travel. But I need to do this. I can't unsee what we uncovered, and I can't walk away from kids who are still out there waiting to be found." Eleanor nodded, her expression solemn but proud. "You're built for this, just like Ranger was built for Toby." Olivia looked out toward the field. "Speaking of which, how's the new project going?" Eleanor's eyes sparkled. She flipped her notebook open to the first page. At the top, in block letters, were the words, "Ranger's Refuge." "It's finally real," she said. "We have the lease signed on the old vet clinic on Main Street. Volunteers are lining up trainers, therapists, foster families, and the first 2 rescues arrive tomorrow. You're really going to turn strays into therapy dogs." "Not just strays," Eleanor corrected gently. "Survivors, just like Ranger, just like Toby." They fell into a comfortable silence. In the distance, Toby had tackled Ranger to the grass and was sprawled across his back like a contented kitten. The dog didn't mind. He lay still, tail thumping. Olivia took a photo on her phone, just one more memory to tuck away in this chapter that had started with so much chaos and fear and now bloomed with hope. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden light through the fresh leaves, Eleanor stood and called out, "Toby, 5 more minutes." The boy looked up, hair-mussed cheeks flushed with joy. "Okay," Grandma Ranger stood and gave a playful bark. Toby laughed, reached for the ball again, and threw it with all his might. Olivia watched them for another long moment. "We never gave up on him," she murmured. "And he never gave up on us." "No," Eleanor agreed. "Because some guardians don't need to speak to be heard." Ranger paused in the middle of the field ball and mouth-eyes fixed on the 2 women. And for just a moment it felt like he understood every word. Sometimes God sends us his angels not with wings, but with fur and silent eyes that see what no one else can. Ranger wasn't just a dog. He was a guardian, a bridge between pain and healing, between fear and faith. In a world that often feels too loud to hear the quiet cries of the lost, it was his instinct, born of suffering and redemption, that brought a little boy home. This story reminds us that no matter how dark the days may seem, light finds a way through sometimes in the form of a child's laughter, a grandmother's unwavering hope, or a dog who simply refused to look away. We are never truly alone in our battles. Even in the silence, God is working. So if you've ever questioned whether miracles still happen, let this be your answer. If this story touched your heart, we invite you to share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment with your thoughts and type "Amen" if you believe in second chances, in divine protection, and in the quiet heroes God sends our way. Subscribe for more stories that restore faith in the goodness still left in this world. May God bless you and every silent guardian in your life.